Good Wednesday morning, everybody. Glad you're joining us here for a good cup of coffee and maybe a little bit of encouragement from the Word of God. We're looking at Joshua. We're in chapter 4 and chapter 5, and we're talking about Gilgal. Where in the world is Gilgal? And we find that it's a place where Joshua, the children of Israel, renewed some things. And we're talking about what is that place. It was a place of remembering. We know that it was a place of resurrection. We talked about that came up out of the Jordan. But there was a third thing that Gilgal represented, and those 12 stones represented. I know some of you may be wondering about these things in the background here, and I just kind of pulled them out. One of them up here says extra, extra. It's a page that somebody fixed for me when I went to Broadmoor, not to Broadmoor, but to East Grand Baptist Church. And the headline just simply says, Church Takes Risk on CISC. And man, they really did. But these are things that when I look at them, I think about what happened there. And those were good days for me at East Grand. There's some golfing trophies up here, and each one of them had the date and the particular tournament that it was in. Some first place and a lot of third places. Some the longest drive, some closest to the pin. But I always look at that and think back on that time. There's a drum here made out of skins, and you'd think, well, that, what is that? It only has one string on it. No, that came from Kenya. When I was in Kenya, Africa, East Africa, and when I see that, it reminds me of some things. I have a hand-carved shepherd here from Poland, and I have a rhinoceros that I bought at a roadside market in Tanzania. The Lord's privileged me to go a lot of places in the world, and I have all of these representing that. One, a picture from Tony Simple when he played pro ball for the Detroit Lions, and it's such a sweet note he wrote to me. So all of those things remind me of those days, and that's what the stones of reminder are, and that's what Gilgal is. So it was a place of remembrance. It was a place of resurrection. But the third thing was a place of renunciation, renouncing some things. And in Joshua 5, we read a very delicate to talk about at any rate. Joshua chapter 5, we read that here at Gilgal, the men were circumcised. Now, men don't like to talk about circumcision any more than women like to talk about a hysterectomy or something like that. But the truth of the matter is that was an act done in the flesh and to the flesh, but to represent identity with God and a dependence upon God. You see, what happened in circumcision is the flesh was cut away from the men in accordance with a covenant made in Genesis chapter 17, the old Abrahamic covenant. Genesis 17, chapter 17, verses 10 through 14. And this covenant was made with Abraham. And the renewal here of that right was symbolic, that they would possess the land, but they would not possess the land in their own strength. It was not in the strength of the flesh, but it was in spite of their physical weakness. In spite of them being able to do anything, they couldn't depend on that. They would allow the knife of God to be applied to their lives, to renounce some things, to cut away some things. And they would allow that knife of God to be applied to their lives. And folks, let me remind you that God desires to cut away any hope of our dependence on anything or anyone but Him. And in essence, what the rite of circumcision symbolized here at Gilgal was their renunciation of dependence on their own ability, their own self-sufficiency. And folks, trust me, If there's any one thing we need in the lives of believers today, it's to renounce our self-sufficiency, to quit depending on what we call our self-adequacy, that I am adequate to do anything. Because what happens is we go through time after time after time of trouble and dark days depending on ourselves. And we just constantly get further and further away from God. Whereas when the dark times come, if we'll run to Him, depend on Him, renounce our self-sufficiency, and depend totally on Christ, then we'll get stronger with every day. Folks, if nothing else, this is a very short thing this morning, but remember this. Let your Gilgal be a place where you renounce any dependency upon yourself. It's a place where you renounce anything in your life that you know to be outside of God's will. Cut it away and let God heal you. That's what renunciation is. And Gilgal can be a place of renunciation. Well, God bless you. You guys have a great middle of the week, and we'll see you in the morning. God bless you.